Breaking Buckingham Palace lights flare awake at 6:42 p.m., cutting through a cold London drizzle, as King Charles steps into a room no one expected him to enter tonight, and hands a sealed red folder directly to Prince William, a folder that, according to senior palace sources, signals the most dramatic power shift inside the monarchy in over a decade. The cameras are off. The corridors are silent. Only the faint hum of rain against the palace windows fills the air as William reads the first page, and his face tightens. Across the country, alerts buzz on phones, news banners erupt, commentators scramble, because whatever changed inside Buckingham Palace tonight is already spilling into Westminster, and ministers are panicking. If you want the full timeline of what led to this explosive moment, subscribe and stay with us, because we are going to break down every second. And here's what sparked the crisis no one saw coming. At 6:43 p.m., exactly 1 minute after receiving the folder, William looks up at his father and witnesses say Charles whispers just 5 chilling words. "It has to be you now." What unfolds over the next hour will shake the monarchy and terrify the political establishment. To understand why tonight feels like the walls of Britain's oldest institution are shifting, you have to go back months, long before the palace windows lit up, long before Prince William was summoned in the rain, long before whispers of transition began leaking through the cracks of royal silence, because this moment did not happen overnight. For months, the public saw a pattern, small at first, then impossible to ignore: King Charles stepping back from certain ceremonies, William stepping forward into others. The late-night briefings from royal aides, carefully worded, always cautious. The Prince of Wales will represent His Majesty at this engagement. The Prince will take the salute. The Prince will oversee this initiative. At first, it looked like ordinary delegation, the natural evolution of a modern monarchy. But insiders say it was far more than that. Behind closed doors, Charles had been wrestling with the weight of a crown that demanded everything: time, health, stamina, diplomacy, resilience. And while the king showed all of it, those closest to him began to notice what he refused to say aloud. The work was getting heavier. Meanwhile, Prince William's role was expanding at a pace not seen since the earliest days of Elizabeth's reign. State briefings, military restructuring, global diplomacy. He was meeting ministers, ambassadors, advisors, often in meetings the king once led personally. And then came the turning point. A series of health updates that shook public confidence and sent shockwaves through the political class. Not catastrophic, not crisis level, but enough to stir unease. Enough for commentators to ask, who is actually steering the ship at this moment? Inside Whitehall, the concern wasn't just symbolic. Government decisions rely on the head of state's presence: signings, authorizations, foreign policy coordination. And when gaps appeared, William filled them with a decisiveness that surprised even senior ministers. But this was no ordinary shift in duties. Every time William stepped forward, the cameras followed. Every time Charles stepped back, the questions grew louder. And every time the palace tried to quiet speculation, the silence only made it worse. Then came the military handover. A key honorary command, one deeply tied to the crown's identity, was transferred to Prince William. Officially ceremonial, historically meaningful, symbolically enormous. It was the clearest message yet that William was not just preparing for future responsibility, he was carrying it now. In real time, the public saw the pageantry. Politicians saw the implications. Royal watchers saw the transition building. But insiders saw something different. A father making a decision long before the outside world realized it. Charles had begun meeting with his most trusted advisors. Private conversations, closed-door strategy sessions, documents reviewed, timelines discussed, responsibilities restructured. Not abdication, nothing official, nothing constitutional, but a deliberate rebalancing of power inside the monarchy's inner chambers. By early autumn, senior palace staff knew the shift was real. What they did not know was the timing. And that timing arrived tonight. A sudden call, a late evening summons, a red folder carried through the corridor by a private secretary whose expression froze every guard he passed. A moment that forced everyone, aides, ministers, advisors, to confront a truth they had quietly braced for. The baton is being passed, whether the institution is ready or not, because while Charles remains the king, William is now carrying responsibilities once reserved for only one man, and the political world is about to feel the consequences. The moment the news leaks, not officially, not through polished palace statements, but through a whisper picked up by a journalist standing outside the gates, London ignites. It begins quietly. A single post. Sources say Prince William has just been handed major new powers. 60 seconds later, it becomes a headline. 3 minutes after that, it becomes a national debate. And within 10 minutes, it becomes a political earthquake outside Buckingham Palace. A crowd forms in the cold November air, some curious, some anxious, some furious. The sound rises slowly at first. Murmurs, questions, scattered shouts. Then it becomes a roaring wave of voices. What's happening inside? Is the king okay? Why now? Why William? Camera crews rush to set up. Cables drag across wet pavement. Microphones tilt toward the palace gates as reporters battle the wind and the noise. At Westminster, the reaction is immediate and chaotic. MPs check their phones mid-session. Whispered conversations ripple across the green benches. Papers rustle. The speaker bangs his gavel, calling for order, but no one is really listening. Has power shifted? In what capacity? One minister snaps, cornering an aide in the hallway. We weren't briefed, the aide replies, eyes wide. No one was. And that is the detail that sends government officials into panic. The palace acted before Westminster even understood what was unfolding. Downing Street staff scramble to gather information. Advisors urgently dial contacts inside the palace. Communications teams try and fail to craft a message that sounds calm, reassuring, controlled. Instead, everything feels fragile, disjointed, exposed. One senior official, speaking to reporters outside Parliament, admits, this changes things significantly. The tone is measured, but the fear behind the eyes is unmistakable. Across the country, the public splits into two emotional camps. Some feel relief, a sense that Prince William has been ready for years, that his steady public presence makes him the natural pillar during uncertain times. My God, finally some leadership. One woman tells the BBC outside a supermarket in Leeds. William has the energy for this. We trust him. Others feel unsettled, worried about what this means for the king's well-being, for stability, for constitutional balance. This is too fast, too secretive, a man in Birmingham says. It's not normal. Something else must be happening. Then there are those who feel betrayed, convinced that the political establishment is hiding truths, pushing transitions, manipulating public narrative. We're not being told the real story, says another voice on LBC. If duties are shifting at this scale, why weren't we told earlier? On social media, the reaction is even louder. #1. #Where is the king? #2. #Prince William takes charge. #3. #royal power shift. Millions of posts flood the platforms. Some supportive, some furious, some simply terrified of what this moment means for the monarchy's future. In front of Kensington Palace, a group of young people gather with homemade signs, not protesting, but demanding transparency. One sign reads, "We love William, but tell us what's going on." The media joins the frenzy with the hunger of wolves. Talk shows bring in historians, strategists, behavioral experts, former palace staff. What message does this send globally? What is the king preparing for? Does this affect international relations? Is this a soft transfer of power? Analysts dissect footage of William's last public appearance, slowing down each frame, searching for clues. Was he tense? Was he briefed earlier? Did he already know this moment was coming? Then the international reaction hits. Breaking alerts from Washington, Ottawa, Canberra, New Delhi. Prince William receives expanded responsibilities amid palace tension. Foreign diplomats begin calling London, seeking clarity no one seems able to offer. Not yet. BYPM. The anxiety has spread to every corner of Britain. In pubs, televisions blare with rolling coverage. Patrons argue, he's ready for this. This is rushed. That's not what succession is supposed to look like. This feels like a crisis. Across these debates, one thing becomes clear. The monarchy, a symbol of stability, continuity. Centuries of predictability suddenly feels unstable. At 8:17 p.m. Another leak emerges from someone described only as a senior palace source. It says that Prince William will now temporarily oversee several key areas traditionally managed by the king, including certain ceremonial roles, strategic briefings, and high-level engagements requiring quick decision-making. The phrase temporarily oversee becomes the lightning rod. Half the nation hears reassurance, the other half hears alarm bells. Meanwhile, inside the palace, staff race up and down the corridors with quiet urgency. Footsteps echo, doors whisper open and close. Advisors cluster in dimly lit rooms, speaking in low tones, aware that a single wrong word could ignite an even bigger firestorm. And through all of this, Two figures remain unseen, the two people at the center of Britain's greatest constitutional drama in years, the king and the prince, who has just been asked to shoulder a weight the country never imagined he would carry this soon. At 8:39 p.m., a final wave of reaction hits. A crowd outside the palace begins chanting William's name. On the opposite side of the gate, another group chants Charles's. Police step in, forming a tense line between the factions. Flashbulbs explode. Loudspeakers echo. Shouts rise into the night that it is no longer just a reaction. It is a national reckoning. People are choosing sides not out of malice, but out of fear, out of love, out of the desperate hope for certainty in a moment full of shadows. What began as a quiet handover inside the palace has now spilled into the streets, into Parliament, into the very heart of Britain's identity, and the storm is only beginning. By 9:04 p.m., the palace has become a fortress of tension. Security tightens. Lights burn in windows usually dark at this hour. Every whisper, every footstep feels heavier than the last. Inside the East Wing, Prince William stands before a polished oak table, the red folder open in front of him. Documents, schedules, state briefs, responsibilities that traditionally sit only with the sovereign, all laid out in crisp lines of black ink. He runs a hand slowly over the pages, not out of hesitation, but out of the gravity he can finally feel pressing on him. Then the door opens. King Charles enters, not with the ceremony of a monarch, not with the posture of a ruler, but with the slow, deliberate steps of a man carrying an unspoken truth. The air tightens. The room feels smaller. For a moment, neither speaks. Then Charles lowers himself into a chair across from his son, a simple, human gesture that shakes the entire atmosphere. "Father," William starts softly, but Charles raises a hand. "William, listen." His voice is low, strained, yet firm, the voice of a king who has held his country together through storms. Now confronting his own limits. "I have tried," Charles says, "to manage every duty, every expectation. But the institution demands more than my health can give at this moment." William's jaw tightens. "Then let me support you, but not like this. Not in secrecy. Not with the country panicking." Charles exhales, looking down at his hands. "They will panic either way." The silence that follows is suffocating. Sources later say this is the moment the conversation changes, the moment the king stops speaking as a father and speaks as a sovereign facing the hardest decision of his reign. Charles looks up. "We cannot wait, William. These responsibilities, the briefings, the military commands, the foreign coordination, they need momentum. They need strength. They need you." William steps back slightly, almost recoiling from the weight of the words. "I'm not ready," he says quietly. "You are," Charles replies, the certainty in his voice cutting through the air like a blade. "You've been ready for longer than even you realize." The room vibrates with that truth. Then, suddenly, a sharp knock on the door. A senior private secretary enters, pale, breath quickened. "Your Majesties, Westminster is demanding a statement. The press is outside in numbers we've never seen, and foreign governments are requesting clarification." William exchanges a look with his father. Urgency, shock, inevitability. "Give us a moment," Charles says. The secretary closes the door, and then the confrontation begins. Not a fight, not anger, but the raw, unfiltered clash between duty and reality. "William," Charles says, leaning forward, "this is not succession. This is not abdication. This is stewardship, temporary stewardship until I regain balance. But tonight, the responsibility must shift. Not because I choose it, but because the country needs stability." William's eyes harden. "The country needs truth," he replies. "They need to hear from you. They need to see you." Charles's face softens with pain. "They will, but not tonight." William turns away, pacing to the window. Outside, he can hear the unmistakable wall of noise, hundreds of voices chanting, shouting, demanding answers. Lights flash. Sirens hum in the distance. The storm is at his door. He closes his eyes. "Father, if I step into this role tonight, it changes everything." Charles stands slowly, a hand coming to rest on his son's shoulder. It already has. William's breath catches a moment of collapse, a moment of inheritance, a moment of awakening. Then Charles adds, almost in a whisper, "You're the future of this institution, and the future has arrived earlier than any of us planned." William opens his eyes. Resolve begins to form. The conflict inside him turns into a decision. "What do you need me to do?" he asks. The king nods, relieved, proud, heartbroken. "Address the nation," Charles says. "Not as the heir, But as the one carrying the duties of the monarchy tonight, the words land like thunder. William freezes. You want me to speak before you? Charles nods once. They need your strength. And I need time. Another knock pierces the moment. A communications advisor enters, voice trembling. Your Royal Highness. The BBC is preparing for a live statement. Sky News is waiting. The crowds are growing and police are requesting guidance. William turns to his father, searching his face. I won't betray you, he says. You won't, Charles replies. You'll protect the crown for both of us. With that, William steps toward the table again, looking at the documents, responsibilities that, for the first time, truly feel like his. He takes a breath, a long, steadying breath, and then he says, prepare the cameras. The next 12 minutes unfold like history written in real time. Staff rush through the hallways. Lights are set up. A podium is placed in the small drawing room. Microphones tested. Security doubled. William waits off camera, hands clasped, breathing slowly, knowing every word he is about to speak will ricochet across Britain within seconds. Behind him, unseen by the world, King Charles stands in the doorway watching, supporting. Letting go, a producer raises her hand. Stand by. The red light on the camera flicks on. Prince William steps forward. He looks directly into the lens, not with fear, not with uncertainty, but with a quiet authority the nation has rarely seen from him. His voice is steady. Tonight, he begins. I want to speak directly to the people of the United Kingdom. Those watching at home fall silent. Crowds outside the palace freeze. Parliamentarians stop mid-conversation. Phones stop buzzing. The entire nation holds its breath to reassure you that the duties of the crown continue without interruption. His Majesty remains fully engaged, and I will be supporting him by taking on additional responsibilities during this period. His words are careful, measured, but unmistakable in meaning. This is the shift. The moment of transfer, unofficial, unannounced, but undeniably real. William continues. We face an important moment, one that requires clarity, unity, and calm. I am here to ensure that stability. Behind the camera, staff exchange stunned looks. They know what this means. They know what history is recording. William ends the statement with a final line, one that sends a tremor across Britain. I will serve with loyalty to my father, to the crown, and to the nation. He steps back, the red light clicks off, and for the first time tonight, the room exhales, but outside, the reaction is instant, explosive, unstoppable. Crowds surge. Newsrooms erupt. World leaders send urgent messages. Parliament descends into shouting, because Prince William has just stepped into a role no one expected him to take, not yet. Not like this. Not under these shadows. And the monarchy now stands on the edge of a new reality. What comes next will define an era. The hours after Prince William's statement unfold like the quiet that follows a violent storm, still, heavy, almost unreal. Across Britain, televisions glow in dim living rooms. The same clip plays over and over. William standing tall, steady, delivering a message the country never expected to hear this year. Outside, the crowds begin to thin. Some leave in silence. Some stay, huddled near the palace gates, candlelight reflecting off wet pavement. Their faces carry a mixture of hope and fear, the emotional cocktail of a nation caught between two eras that suddenly feel closer than ever. Inside Buckingham Palace, the atmosphere shifts. Not chaotic now, not panicked, just solemn. The staff move with softened footsteps. Advisors speak in whispers. Doors open and close gently, as if everyone is afraid to disturb the delicate balance of the moment. Prince William walks through the corridor alone, the weight of his new responsibilities, temporary, unofficial, yet undeniable, settles on his shoulders like a cloak woven from centuries of expectation. He pauses by a window overlooking the gardens. The rain has stopped. The lamps cast golden reflections across the soaked gravel. For a moment, he allows himself to breathe. He thinks of the red folder, the whispers, the decisions no son imagines making this soon. The eyes of millions that look to him tonight for reassurance. He wonders what history will remember of this evening, whether it will become a footnote in a peaceful transition or a line in a chapter that marks a turning point for the monarchy. Behind him, a soft voice breaks the silence. William. He turns. King Charles stands there, no crown, no regalia, just a father whose face carries a mixture of pride and exhaustion. For a moment, neither speaks, then Charles steps closer. You handled it with dignity, he says quietly. William nods. shoulders still tense. I hope it was enough. It was what the country needed, Charles replies. What I needed. There is a pause, long, heavy, filled with everything they cannot say aloud. Finally, Charles places a hand on his son's arm. This is only temporary, the king says. Though both men know that temporary is a word that can stretch and blur when used inside the walls of monarchy, William answers with a soft, almost resigned exhale. I know. For the first time tonight, Charles allows his posture to soften, as though admitting that letting someone else carry the weight even briefly is both a relief and a heartbreak. They stand together for a moment longer. Two figures outlined against the soft glow of the palace lights, a father and son, a king and heir, bound by duty, time, and the silent truth that tonight changed something neither can reverse. Elsewhere in the palace, phones continue to buzz with messages from world leaders. The US president sends reassurance. European allies request briefings. Commonwealth nations ask for clarity. The tone is supportive but also cautious. Everyone understands what William's statement signals. A shift in function. A redistribution of duties. A moment of vulnerability within an institution built on ritual and continuity, and outside those diplomatic channels, ordinary Britons process the moment in their own quiet ways. In Manchester, a couple watches the late-night news, holding hands without speaking. In Cardiff, an elderly woman wipes away tears, whispering, "He did well, he did well." In Glasgow, a group of friends debate the future of the monarchy until their pub closes, each voicing fears they didn't know they had until tonight. In Belfast, a teacher scrolls through social media, reading every update as though piecing together the early lines of a history lesson she will one day teach, and through all these reactions, the hope, the skepticism, the emotion, a single question spreads across the nation. What happens now? Not tomorrow, not next year. Now, because even with Charles still on the throne, even with the palace insisting this is temporary, even with William insisting this is about stability, the country feels the shift. It feels irreversible. The monarchy, for the first time in years, seems human, vulnerable, adapting, facing the limits of flesh and time, and in that vulnerability, Britain sees itself. By midnight, the palace grows quieter still. Lights fade one by one. The city hum softens. A blanket of stillness settles over London. Prince William finally returns to his private quarters. He removes his tie with slow, deliberate movements. He sits on the edge of the bed, elbows resting on his knees, hands clasped. And no cameras, no advisors, no crowds. Just a man who has been asked to step closer to a future he thought was still years away. In another room, King Charles sits alone, as well, surrounded by documents he once handled without hesitation. He looks at them now with a mix of determination and restraint. He knows he will return to them. He knows he will continue to serve. But he also knows what he whispered to William earlier was true. It has to be you. Now, the clock in the hallway chimes softly, a gentle reminder that time moves forward whether the world is ready or not. And, as the sound fades, Britain enters a new, uncertain dawn, not with fanfare, not with declarations, but with a quiet shift in the balance between tradition and necessity. History will decide what this night truly meant, but for now, in the soft hush of a kingdom holding its breath, one truth lingers in the air. The future arrived early, and it is already unfolding.